Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about overdrive pedals. And it's very easy to get lost and go down a rabbit hole trying to find your perfect pedal that will do exactly what you want it to do. Part of that is knowing exactly what you want it to do. I'm going to show you here two pedals that could be described in the same way. They both have a clean blend, which is a parallel clean signal alongside the overdriven signal. They're mid bumped, which means they give an extra little push in the mid range, which helps you cut through for leads and really fattens up the sound. We're talking here about the Tube Screamer, the 808 variant, and the Minotaur, the Klon Centaur. Notice that I've set both of these at 5.8 on all the controls. I'm playing into a deluxe reverb set clean with a tiny bit of compression and EQ, but that's not really going to change the outcome here. Really nice sort of clean pedal platform tone there from the deluxe reverb. There's a tiny bit of hair on it, but it's still going to translate as clean in a band mix. Let's start with the Tube Screamer. Without. So even with a humbucker and a maple neck on this Telecaster, it still makes me want to play that sort of Texas blues thing. Now let's compare it to the Klon. So again, everything's set the same, just to give us some kind of consistency when we're testing these. So it's not as compressed, it's not as fat sounding, it's a little bit brighter. But all of this changes depending on how you set it. So let's have a look at the higher end of the gain range on the Tube Screamer. I'm going to set this to 8.5. Again, just the Tube Screamer, no Klon, and the amp is still exactly as we had it. Makes you want to hit quite aggressively. It's got a really big, thick, lower mid-range because the mid-frequency that this is centered around is lower than the Klon. So the mid-frequency of the Tube Screamer is around 700 Hertz. Varies from model to model, but roughly there. Now if we turn the Klon up to the same sort of place, I'm going to try and play the same kind of thing and we'll see what the difference is. This is actually a blend control. At the moment, there's no distortion added in. This is 100% distortion and there's no clean blend now. So that's as gainy as a Klon can get. You can hear that really prominent kind of honky quality to it. That's centered around 1 kilohertz. I said earlier that the Tube Screamer is centered around 700. Now you may describe the difference between the Tube Screamer and the Klon as the Tube Screamer sounds thicker and the Klon sounds thinner and less ballsy, and you could be correct, but you could also say the Tube Screamer sounds muddy and the Klon sounds clearer, so you get a bit of extra clarity from the 1K of the Klon, but it doesn't have the thickness in the lower mids that the Tube Screamer does. So that's far from all that's at play here. The Tube Screamer also lops off a bit of bottom end and tightens up the bass, whereas the Klon is typically known for retaining that a bit more. So if you're boosting into a distorting amp and you want to get a bit of a tighter sound, maybe a lead boost that really pokes out without having to use a separate pedal to specifically make you louder, a Tube Screamer might be a really good choice for that because it gets rid of that bass. Now, I'm going to show you some other pedals as well and show you just how useful it is to know what job you want it to do. So we're going to change this Minotaur for, let's go for a compulsive drive. Now this is based on a Marshall kind of drive, and for me the stock settings are a bit fierce. Now this peak type, a lot of people think it is high pass or low pass because it's labelled HP LP on the pedal itself. This peak type doesn't do that. This is actually repositioning the mid peak, so it's kind of like choosing where the boost sits. Now the high peak gets you more of that sizzly Marshally kind of thing. The low peak makes it more like a kind of really high octane tweed amp or a JTM 45 pushed to the absolute limit. Now there's a bit of a level difference between them, so it's slightly harder to get what's actually going on here. If you wanted to use this for, say, like a rhythm tone, this might actually be a bit much in terms of gain for, you know, a crunchy rhythm tone. So let's find a slightly lower setting. I also like to turn tone controls completely off so you can hear what they're adding or even taking away. Now I want this to be a low peak sound because the higher peak would just cut through a little bit more than I personally want this sound to do. Where are we going to set the tone? Now I always like as smooth a sound as I can get, so I often turn the tone off and turn it gradually up until you hear the sound really kind of leap out a bit. And you can hear that point if you listen here. So that's too muddy. So the 2.3, that's got enough top end for me. It is a bit quieter than our original sound though. So I'm going to turn the level up. I might need to turn the gain down even more. So it's quite a stingy sound still. But it doesn't sustain like a full-on lead sound. This is great for a rocky rhythm tone. Obviously you can tweak this to taste. I'm just showing you how I might set it up for a gig. Now if we add the Tube Screamer, especially on the neck pickup, you'll notice this. Now if I play something quite fast and kind of percussive on the bottom E string, 10 points if you can name that song. It's a little bit muddy and you're not really getting the pick definition, and there's also too much bass. Now if I turn the Tube Screamer on, exactly the same settings as we left it. It's a lot cleaner and you're actually getting more punch. So ironically, the overdrive is making the sound cleaner as far as how much it punches through. So there's two separate things here. There's saturation, but also clarity. So we're actually saturating the sound, removing the bass before it hits the overdrive to tighten it up and give you a really punchy, clear. Again, take it off. Not only do you lose the gain, you lose the punch and the clarity. Let's compare that to the Klon Centaur set at the same settings. So I'm going to dial in exactly the same sound with the Klon. Now this is set exactly the same way. So the Klon has less gain here. It's less compressed, more open. So we need to turn the gain up. But then what happens here, you get a really pronounced low mid bump. And it starts to sound really fat. And it's no longer really fixing the problem of tightening up that bottom end. Whereas the Tube Screamer is doing that perfectly. So that's one example of where you may want a Tube Screamer instead of a Klon. Of course, the opposite is true as well. If you find the Tube Screamer is taking too much bass away, a Klon might be a good alternative. That's just two examples of the many overdrive pedals that not only exist in the HELIX, but there's also obviously even more in the real world. The first thing that I would always think about when looking for an overdrive pedal is what exact job do you want it to do? Do you want it to change the character of your amp completely, in which case you're looking for an amp in a box kind of pedal, like the full tone OCD is designed to be. The Zen drive is designed to go after that Dumble thing. And there's loads of other different pedals, like the Rat was originally designed to push a clean amp a bit more martially. And there's loads of famous pedals by companies like JHS and Wampler that are really fantastic pedals for achieving that kind of thing. If you don't want an amp in a box kind of pedal, then it's a different thing altogether. This Timar here, that's based on a Timmy. It's actually a really versatile pedal. I really like this. So we're going to leave the clipping in the down position now. So say you have a clean amp like we started with. And you want to push it so that it's breaking up, but it doesn't really change the character of the amp. Now the Timmy is a really good choice for this because you can really tailor the treble and bass to your own taste. Now again, there is some overlap here because if you turn the bass and the treble all the way down, it's not a Tube Screamer and it's not a Klon, but in theory, by turning the bass and the treble down, you will get a mid boost. So let's see what we get here. It's already quite different. There's still quite a lot of bass. That's because the bass cut is actually the first thing in the circuit. So the bass cut is before the gain. Now that's a bit like when we were attenuating the bass with the Tube Screamer going into the compulsive drive, the OCD. So let's turn the treble cut back and we'll start at 6. What do we get here? Still sounds like a Fender amp, sounds like a driving Fender amp. Again, sort of sounds like that mid-drivey Tube Screamer Klon kind of thing, but the mid is in a slightly different place. So again, it's all about what you want it to do. You can go the complete opposite way. Now this is going to get a lot louder. With the bass and treble all the way off, it's a lot fuzzier and it's not got any of that mid push that we had to start with. What we can do with this sound is really tweak it to get exactly where we want it to be to use with our clean amp. Now I want less gain. It's maybe a bit fuzzy and bassy for me. So what I would do with this is actually turn the bass cut up from 0. Now you don't need a lot if it's a low gain setting. Obviously if you're running higher gain, you'd want that bass cut higher to stop it from getting muddy and flubbing out. Now we'll come into the treble cut. Now the treble cut is after the gain section. So the bass attenuates it on the way in, and the treble smooths it out or brightens it on the way out. Think of this as like your tone on the Tube Screamer. Now let's start with it as dark as it will go. We've actually lost a lot of the gain there, and the level. So we're going to bring this in, out, and go from there. Just starting to wake up a little bit there. So that zinginess is back, but we've lost some of the gain. Now that's a really nice crunchy but articulate rhythm tone. You can hear as I turn the gain up there, it goes from less bass to having more bass. You can actually hear it in the noise as well. So I'm just going to turn that bass cut up there as well. Really nice, usable sound for a lot of gigging situations as well. Now let's put a Klon in front of that. I'm going to set it up roughly how we had it before. It was all about 5.8. So there you really hear that prominent mid-range of the Klon, and it gets you that really honky. Now let's compare that with the Tube Screamer. So that's really honky as well, but in a different way. That's a bit lower placed in terms of tone. It's really, what do you want it to do? Because these are just 3 pedals that we've looked at here. 2 of them we've compared in quite a bit of detail. And these are totally different from something, say, like a Big Muff, which is very mid-scooped. I've still got the Timmy on here, but I've got the Dark Dove fuzz, which is based on a Russian Big Muff. Klon. Tube Screamer. So it's all about knowing what job you want the pedal to do, what everything else is currently doing in your rig. There's not a magic pedal that just works with everything. I like to think of it as like a recipe. I hope this was useful, and if you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. Thanks ever so much, and I'll catch you in another video soon.